today I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about something I talked to our Moms Connect group about. It's about how to live before you die, or how to live a fulfilled life. We're also going to talk about death, and that's not always a cheery subject. Some people find a way to brighten up their passing, and they do it on their headstones. So we're going to talk a little bit about epitaphs. And an epitaph is just something people have put on their headstones. And I'll give you a couple examples. The first one was, I told you I was sick. Or some other person put, the best is yet to come. Or live to 99, happy all the time. So maybe you want to think about, what would people say about what do you want put on your headstone? What do you want people to remember you by? I mean, some people, they go funny, like, I told you I was sick. I mean, that's nothing super serious. It's kind of funny. I don't know if anybody has been to the Boot Hill Graveyard. It's in Tombstone, Arizona, where they had, like, the Battle of the OK Corral. Well, you can go through this graveyard out there. Now, like, I'm not sure if these are legitimately what they put on their tombstones when these people died, or if now that it's a tourist attraction, maybe it's something that they just do for fun, for tourists. But when you walk through, this is really what they say. Frank Bowles, as you pass by, remember that as you are, so once was I, and as I am, soon you will be. Remember me. Okay, then they get funny. Then there's Lester Moore. Here lies Lester Moore, 4 slugs from a 44. No less, no more. Get it? Lester Moore. Okay, or George Johnson. Here lies George Johnson, hanged by mistake. He was right, we was wrong, but we strung him up, and now he's gone. So those are funny. Maybe you want that. Maybe it's something, as simple as she loved the Lord with all her heart. Prayer warrior. Maybe it's your life verse. You want the reference on there. Whatever it may be, you might know, you might not. You might have a while to think about it. But then again, we're not guaranteed, so you never know. So that's something to think about. Some people have a bucket list of things that they want to do or places they want to go before they die. While there's nothing wrong with having a bucket list, I believe there is more to life than simply fulfilling your bucket list. Because ultimately, that list does not mean you lived a fulfilled life. That's what I want to talk to you about today. Then, because this was live, I was able to show them a video, but I don't have a way to do that on here, so I will leave the link. But there's a video by Francis Chan, and it's on YouTube, so I'll leave a link for that. And he takes a rope, and he has a rope analogy, and in his analogy, I'll try to explain it. He has this really long rope, okay? It goes clear across his stage. And what he essentially says is, at the end, he's got a little tiny colored part, probably about that big, on this enormous rope. He says, you're going to pretend that rope is eternity, and that little tiny colored red part is your life. And a lot of people, they focus on, what am I going to do right here? How am I going to live my retirement? Which is like this little tiny fraction of, and they're not thinking about in eternity, what it's going to look like in eternity. They're living for now. I mean, and I know that's easy to do. We live here. We're part of the world. We can't, but that's not what we're to focus on. We're to focus on how it's going to affect eternity, not how it's going to affect us now. I mean, to an extent, you do have to think about now, but you get my point. But I would highly recommend you watch that video. It was awesome. Wish I could show it to you now, but I can't. But okay, so the first and most important thing in order to live a fulfilled life is your relationship with Jesus Christ. The most important thing you have to have in order to have a truly fulfilled life is salvation. Without it, you'll always have an empty spot in your life. I once heard it put this way: everyone is born with a God-shaped hole in their heart, in their life somewhere. The only person or thing that can fulfill that is God. It doesn't matter how many cars you have, how nice your house is, how much money you have. No matter what you do to try to fill that hole, the only thing that'll fill it is God. So without that, you're not going to ever feel fully fulfilled, truly fulfilled. I liked this quote. I'm not sure. I didn't write where it came from when I was taking notes, but no person is living at his or her best who is not living at his or her best spiritually. We must be, that was this, and then the third one, we must be different from the world. In her book, Awaken by Priscilla Shirer, she says, to experience everything God intends, a difference is required. one in which your thought processes, self-disciplines, and most pressing choices carve out a narrow road that is not often tread, one on which you will nearly always walk alone. And I thought that was great. In Romans 12:2 it says, "And be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." We live in the world, obviously, but God calls us to be different. As Christians, we should be different. So people should be able to look at your life and be like, there's something different about them. Whether, just by what you do and how you act and present yourself in the world, just walking around. Somebody's going to look at you and be like, I can't put, even if they can't put their finger on it, there's something about them that's different. I want to know what it is. Okay? Second, after our relationship with Jesus Christ, we need to know our purpose. We don't live for the here and now, the temporary. Everything in this world is just that, temporary. You can't take it with you. It's all going to burn up one day. R.C. Sproul said in his book, Growing in Holiness, "We were made for this very purpose, to glorify the Creator of the universe. What we can do is lay up treasure in heaven." In Matthew 6:19 through 21, he says, it's the right place here, "Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." So, according to those verses, we're to focus on things that are going to matter in light of eternity. For example, one thing is we can serve the Lord with the talents He's given you with the right attitude. It's very important that you do that with the right attitude. If you might be the best singer in the choir, and you might go up there and you're like, I'm the best singer in the church, and I did this, and I hope all these people, look at me and praise me. That's not why we do it. We should get up there just to glorify God. Yes, you might be the best singer, but we shouldn't care whether anybody even says one thing to you. If you leave church and no one's like, oh, that was a great solo, there's nothing wrong with that, because that's not who you're doing it for. You're doing it for God. And that is ultimately the only reason. Now, there's other ways. I mean, you think about the obvious ways, you teach Sunday school, you work in the nursery, you sing, you play a musical instrument. Those are the obvious ways we can serve the Lord. There's some not so obvious ways that, when I did this for the ladies, they came up with, for example, you can maybe give a ride to somebody who needs a ride to church. That's a simple way. I know in our group, when anybody has a baby or surgery or something, we do a meal train. So we will set up a meal train, and we'll all take turns taking meals to the family. That's a way to serve the Lord. I know the men at our church, the one way they serve is they have a sign-up sheet. When it gets warmer and the grass starts growing, they have a sign-up sheet. So that each, a guy will sign up for a month. TJ will sign up for a month, say May or June or whatever. And that's their month to go take care of the grass at church. That's their way of serving. And there's all kinds of other ones. Those are just some that came to my mind. And those are ways. Sorry, I lost my place. Another way, a thing that would matter in eternity, is witnessing to people. We need to share the gospel message in all we say and do. Now, that can be knocking on doors, handing out tracts. But you know what? Just by the way you talk and act, like I said before, we're to be make a different. Sorry, we're to be different. Just the way you act, can be a testimony of God. I mean, just the way you conduct yourself in the world, that can be a witness for Jesus. One day you'll be rewarded for the things you've done here on earth, and when you get to heaven. Okay, and then there's some verses that I'd like to share with you. Colossians 3:23, and I have these typed out. "Whatsoever ye do, do it heartily as to the Lord, and not unto men, knowing that of the Lord ye shall receive the reward of the inheritance, for ye serve the Lord Christ." And then there's Hebrews 12:1 and 2. "Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God." And then Paul says in Philippians 3:13 and 14, Brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth unto those things which are before. I press towards the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. So we're to run the race for God. Press towards the mark. The mark would be, the prize of the high calling of God. In James 4:14, it talks about our life is but a vapor. So it's here and then it's not. It's steam. It doesn't last. It's there and then it's not. So that's something to remember. You might think, oh, I have years to serve the Lord. I have years to witness. Well, you might, but we're not guaranteed tomorrow. So, you could be here today and tomorrow you could be in a car accident and die. You could have a heart attack. I've heard of people in their 20s and 30s, they just don't wake up, whether they had a heart attack or they just didn't wake up. So you're not guaranteed tomorrow. So we need to do it today. I read in an article while I was studying for this, and I thought it was a great statement about our purpose. You are intentionally created for a purpose. Anything you do outside of it is not your best and fullest life. So seek His counsel and follow Him wherever He leads you. That's where I want to leave you today. While having a bucket list is fun, and I don't discourage you from having one. I have one. There's places I want to go, things I want to do before I die. I think that we are in danger of focusing too much on these worldly things and not so much on the things that will matter for eternity. If you travel the world and have the best decorated house on the block or gave the most to St. Jude's, that's not going to matter if you didn't serve the Lord to the best of your ability or tell others about Jesus. It's not going to amount to a hill of beans when you stand before God if you did nothing for Him and you did all this other fluff, for another way to say it. I don't know about you, but I want to be able to have Jesus look at me and say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. I want to be able to be rewarded those crowns that I can lay back at Jesus' feet because it was all for Him.